It was a blind spot and it scared me to know that it was a blind spot, but I went through it. I learned, and now I'm in a place where I can confidently say this is no longer going to happen to me. And if it does, it will no longer affect me and I will no longer be prisoner to it. So I strongly believe that the people we enter into relationships with, be it friendships, romantic, especially romantic, because there's a lot of energy in that pull in the universe, they are mirrors of ourselves. We attract what we are, where we are. And if you have a certain misalignment, dysfunction, brokenness about you, you will attract someone who will either be kind of like a playground for you to work through whatever it is, whatever state you are in that you were maybe unaware of and want to get through, or it will amplify where you are because that's the energy you are holding on to. This might sound abstract at this point, but what I'm trying to say is that I'm going to talk about my relationships and particularly a blind spot of mine in relationships, which was psychological manipulation and gaslighting specifically. First, I want to start off with taking a collective deep breath. Do it with me now. All right. We are open, connected, and receptive. I'm Angel, thank you for joining me. I want to start off obviously with a disclaimer. I am not a guru, I am not a psychologist, I am not a therapist, I am not a magician. I'm like I like to say, a piece of the universe, living a human experience and wanting to gain from this experience by sharing it with you and exchanging our personal vantage points. It's just enriching and it's fun. This video is not to blame anyone. This video is not to point fingers, to shame, to vilify anyone. In every relationship, there are two parties, there's, we'll keep it simple. We'll say there's two parties, in a couple. And as much as the environment can affect you, you are receptive and you interact and choose how you interact with said environment, especially how you react to said environment. So a year ago, I met somebody that I was excited about, and I connected with this person really quickly and pretty deeply. And when I shared a bit about what was going on with my mom, who is a life coach, her link is also in the description if you're curious about her services. The first thing she said to me was, I'm not feeling this guy. What's going on between you two kind of reminds me of your ex, a person that I had been with for 10 years. And she said that there seems to be some psychological manipulation going on and a bit of gaslighting. And I was kind of like, huh? Mind you, I had been broken up with my ex of 10 years for 2 years at this point. Then I went online and I started to watch a few YouTube videos. This is why I love people sharing their experiences, their knowledge, their perspective, because man alive, can you gain so much from reading people's books, watching people's videos, just getting other people's experience, really. Woo. And I learned about psychological manipulation, and I really identified with the concept of gaslighting. I'm going to share a video in the description if you want to really dive into the 10 signs of gaslighting. Whoosh, watching it, I felt so triggered and terrified because I had no idea. When I'm telling you, this was a blind spot of mine. It was a blind spot. I had no idea that somebody else's actions could affect me in such a way, and that this was actually a textbook behavior, that it's just pure psychology. I'm going to talk about what it is that I personally connected with, what it looked like, what I had experienced in a moment. When I learned about it, I was really scared because I thought, oh my gosh, like, if this is my blind spot, how am I going to avoid ending up in the same relationship? How am I not going to repeat the past? I was terrified of dating again. I couldn't trust myself. The trust I had with myself, my self-trust was eroded, which is funny because that is a result of gaslighting. So what were the experiences? What were the signs of gaslighting that I personally faced? I'm going to share a few examples with you. What's ironic or funny or human, I guess, I did end up dating that guy that my mother warned me about, the manipulator, or the person who exhibited manipulative tendencies and gaslighting behavior. I wish to dissociate the behavior from the person, just to encourage them to do better. You know, it's not about being better, because you are better than this. If you are a person who exhibits this behavior, we are all better than this. It's really about doing better. And I believe we all can. However, even though I did date somebody who did exhibit gaslighting behavior, the two relationships were very different. And the biggest factor, the biggest change was me in these two relationships. And that's why I want to talk about this. So when you're in a relationship with someone and there is psychological manipulation happening, it's basically kind of mind games, tricks, and things that can drive you crazy if you play along. And oftentimes we don't know we're playing along because people are very tricky and very sneaky and very smart out there. But gosh, it just goes so much deeper than that, and I want to get into it, but I don't want to get all mixed up. So let me just give you a few examples before I talk about how to protect yourself from it. Apparently, the result of behaviors like gaslighting and psychological manipulation is the erosion of your self-esteem and your trust in yourself. And when those erode, it leads to, depression, anxiety, and all types of negative mental illnesses, basically. I definitely experienced that, and I didn't realize to what extent the environments that I was in contributed to it. Now, I'm very specific in saying the environments I was in contributed to it, because again, I believe in toxic environments and exchanges. I don't want to give power to the notion of toxic people. I think people exhibit a whole slew of behavior because of the hurt that's inside of them. And okay. Enough with the disclaimers. I'll just get into it. Apparently, a sign of gaslighting is you don't feel like you fit in anywhere because the person you're in a relationship with kind of defines you for yourself and tells you, I guess, puts your flaws at the forefront. And that's definitely something I experienced, where my ex was often telling me that I was weird, that maybe I was spectrum-y, that I wasn't good at reading people emotionally or connecting to people emotionally, reading the room, and that I was careless with my words and reckless in the way I express myself, and that I was just, weird. And I went from being very sociable and comfortable with being sociable to being very just self-conscious and uncomfortable with myself and extremely hard on myself. Lots of self-doubt, lots of self-judgment, criticism, definitely fueled by this relationship. Another sign is that you question and you doubt yourself a lot. And one thing that exacerbated that behavior in me of constantly questioning myself was the fact that I was having the most unhealthy conversations with ex number one. We'll say, the 10-year one. I don't know if you've met this type of person, but there's some type of people that are so good at reversing, on turning the tables. A common occurrence would be I come to my partner and I say, I have an issue, a problem in the relationship that I would like to discuss in hopes that we can come to an understanding, a solution, some kind of change that is a win-win situation. My partner gets defensive and immediately fires back with, yeah, well, I have this problem with you, actually. And what would happen so often is that I would start justifying myself and answering their complaint, being like, yeah, but no, actually, because blah, 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 blah. And now we're talking about their problem, and they're really good at making me feel bad about myself. And then I end up feeling guilty. I end up breaking down. I often ended up crying. And then the person who broke me down then became the person who built me back up, because then he would hug me and be like, no, you're a great person. He would comfort me. But it's like, you made me cry. And now you're the one building me back up. And in this unhealthy dynamic, you become dependent on this person because they kind of hold the tools to your self-esteem. And that's what the dangers of long-term exposure to gaslighting cause. It's a complete erosion of your sense of self. I remember my partner would get angry at me when I believed myself over him. It's a very specific example, but he was really good at identifying actors in movies and stuff like that, like faces on TV. It's not my strong suit, but still, I still have an opinion. I'm still a human being. And sometimes I was convinced that I see a face and I'd be like, that's that actor in a TV show. And he'd be like, no, that's the actor from this other TV show. I remember one time clearly he was angry with me and he said, I can't believe you don't trust me. And it's like, you're angry with me because I trust me instead of you? Even if he was often right, I still have the right to believe in what I choose to believe in my perception of the world, you know? Even if it is wrong. Yes, then I would see that I was wrong and then I would change my mind. But to get mad at me for having an opinion and for trusting myself, that was just too much. Another sign is that your esteem is much lower since this person entered your life. And that is definitely the case because I remember when I left this relationship, one of my closest friends who knew me since I was a child, you know, we went to grade school together. She knew me before the relationship, during it, and after. We went out clubbing one day and we were at Tim Horton in Montreal, Canada. And she started to cry and telling me that she was so happy that I was back. The old me was back, that she hadn't seen me this alive and bubbly and just myself in a very long time. And people that I met, that I befriended while I was in the relationship, after the relationship, they saw me and they were like, oh my God, I've never known the side of you. I've never known you to be this way, this outgoing, this gregarious, this bubbly, this alive. I really had no awareness that I put myself in a cage that was a relationship that just did not suit me, you know? So yeah, my self-esteem had just gone really, really downhill. And obviously that leads to depression, that leads to anxiety, that leads to self-doubt, it leads to a slew of problems. And it's inevitable. You will doubt yourself when you are trying to communicate with a poor communicator. He would drive me crazy because he was also really good at lying and lying to himself, I think, first of all. Either he was lying to himself or he was psychotic. Imagine you're talking in a conversation with someone and you tell them, okay, this is the exact sentence you just uttered 5 minutes ago, and they tell you, I never said that. And this would go on all the time. You start to feel like you're crazy. And sometimes I would have receipts, I would have proof, I would have text, visual, or audio proof of what I was saying. And now it went from denial, that didn't happen, you're exaggerating, whatever, to, oh no, but that's not what I meant, or no, that's not, you misunderstood. So first it went from that, I never said that, to, oh, I did say that, but that's not what I meant. And when you're dealing with somebody like that, I mean, obviously you're going to go crazy. And I was often very angry. I also had other anger management issues, underlying issues. I will get to that in a second. But in an environment like that, it made me even more volatile, more emotional, more angry, more obviously you go crazy because you're not dealing with the rationality. So the irrational will bring the irrational out of you. Often the gaslighters are very calm in the face of you're crazy. You are sanely going crazy when faced with such absurdity, but they look at you like, wow, you got issues. You're kind of unstable. You're overreacting. And this makes you feel guilty. Thus, guilt trip is another tool of the gaslighter. And in the guilt, I felt like I was really hard to love. I felt unlovable. I felt unstable. I felt emotionally crazy. I just felt like he was putting up with me. And I was so lucky to be with somebody who could handle my ups and downs, my emotional volatility. And I want to laugh. It wasn't so much me. It was the environment. It's kind of like if you're in a room full of smoke, you're going to cough, right? And if somebody doesn't know you and they see you coughing, they're like, oh, you have a problem. You cough a lot. And it's like, it's absurd because it's like, well, I'm coughing because of the smoke in the air. If I was in a room with clean air, I wouldn't be coughing. And that's what I realized coming out of this relationship, learning about gaslighting, learning about how the dynamic between us actually affected me and the person I am now today. No one would ever call me emotionally volatile angry, crazy, none of these things. None of them. Hard to love? And obviously, I know that the responsibility was on me, right? I put myself in the room of smoke and I kept myself in a room of smoke. You can have the healthiest pair of lungs ever. If you expose them to toxins, they will eventually start degrading, you know? It's the responsibility of the person breathing to leave the room, you know? So I own my responsibility in this. I own it fully. And that's part of how you protect yourself from this kind of behavior. It's understanding what is keeping you in this situation, you know? And it's funny because it really was a blind spot for me, because the end of our relationship, I was riddled with anxiety. I had developed a panic and anxiety disorder that I did overcome. I also created a video on that if you are interested in knowing. Apparently it's been helping a lot of people. I still get people years later who send me messages saying, thank you for sharing your experience in such detail. And I didn't realize to what extent the relationship was the hugest factor. The biggest proof I have is at the moment we ended our relationship, I ended the relationship because he manipulated me into ending it. He wanted to, but didn't have the courage to, I don't know, didn't want to be the one to, kind of twisted me, led me in conversation to do it. I know now, I see now, but it's for the best. I'm really grateful. The moment we ended, I stopped having panic attacks. And I would get anxiety and panicky every time I had to see him. And we had to work together for a while because we were managing a YouTube channel together. And I felt anxiety every time I was walking down the hallway towards the apartment, our former apartment. Like my body knew, toxic, must get away from the situation. But something in my mind was so disconnected, I just did not understand and know that this was it, you know? I remember coming out of the relationship and moving into a new apartment with a new roommate, a friend. And there was one day where we were just sitting on the floor in our living room against the wall. And we started talking about the relationship that I was in, right? And I started to say things like, you know, oh my God, I love having my own room, my own space now. I can sing again. I used to sing all the time. Then I entered this relationship. And since I was living with somebody who didn't like noise and who didn't like my singing particularly, even though he said he didn't, yet he always told me to shush. I have video footage of him shushing me when I was singing. I stopped singing. I stopped wanting to sing and I just stopped. And then I just shared some more little things about how I twisted and turned and curved and suffocated and silenced myself to fit into this relationship that was not my size. And she was like, it sounds like you were in an abusive relationship. And I started to cry. It was weird. It was so strange. I felt like I was coming out of an abusive relationship. And yet I was like, no, I wasn't. He was a wonderful boyfriend. I was so lucky to have him. I'm such an emotionally volatile person. I can't believe that he put up with me. He's going to find a woman. He's going to make her super happy. They're going to be super happy together. I don't know who I'm going to find. That was the mentality I came out of because I saw myself through the kind of broken lens that he helped create, because he really did make me feel often like he was putting up with me. You should never feel that way. Oh, blessed child of the universe. I'm not saying that I was perfect. In many ways, I was a bad girlfriend. In many ways, I fell short. I made mistakes, for sure. What I'm talking about is I gave the keys to my self-esteem to someone else. And that was the hugest mistake I made. And in learning about gaslighting, and looking into how to counteract it and how to protect yourself from such behavior, it empowered me. And so last year, when I started dating this new person, I was different. And the techniques, we had one conversation. He tried all of the techniques that my ex did, turning the table around, trying to guilt me, accusing me of doing things to hurt him that had nothing to do, like bringing things into the conversation that had nothing to do with the conversation. This time, I was armed with the tools and I didn't fall for it. I stayed on topic. I said this, you don't have to agree. We don't even have to continue this conversation, period. The end. I am no longer moving forward in this conversation because you are not hearing me. I don't know what you're trying to do, but you're trying to manipulate me into saying other things. And I would call him out on it. I was like, what you're saying right here is very manipulative. What you're saying right here is playing the victim. often. You know, this is a big thing about gaslighters. And it comes from a place of insecurity. That's all it is. I don't even think that they're aware of their behavior. Maybe I did gaslighting and I'm not even aware of it, you know? I definitely criticized my ex a lot for a lot of things. So maybe, you know, I built some insecurities in him. You know, like I said, relationships are mirrors. And sometimes it's easier to see the other person's behavior because it's what's in front of us, and we're a bit blind to our own we're a bit blind to our own behavior, right? But I was very proud of myself coming out of that conversation because I didn't let him twist my words around. I didn't let him get into my head. I didn't get upset. I felt the same frustration that I felt with my ex. I felt the same frustration and like, oh my God, I'm talking to a wall. I'm saying the same thing 3 times in a row. And after explaining it in depth, he comes back to the same conclusion of, no, but you're trying to hurt me. And I'm just like, whoa. And I was like, you know what? I'll wash my hands of this. Goodbye. And when he saw that gaslighting didn't work on me, bam, his behavior changed drastically. I'm glad actually I did date another person who had gaslighting behavior because I needed to build up my self-confidence again. And in confronting the same situation but having a different reaction, this time it did not erode my confidence. If anything, it boosted it because I saw just how strong and aware I was and how capable I was of taking care of myself, of walking away from toxicity, of identifying toxic behavior and calling it out. Now I'm a new person and I was just so happy to mend the relationship with myself. I think that is the most important relationship, and that is the basis of what I wanted to talk about in terms of how you can protect yourself from gaslighting. Honey, you cannot be gaslit if you are not flammable. No one can set you on fire if you aren't flammable. A person can get inside of your head if there is an opening. A person can break you if there are already cracks that they can get into and widen. That sounds nasty. My first relationship, I was young. I was 19 and I was coming into it with a lot of baggage. Yes, I had a lot of self-confidence. I was a loud, rambunctious teenager, full of hopes and dreams and all over the place energy. But it was like a surface confidence. My foundation was very cracked and crumbled by many things. The relationship with my parents, my first sexual experience. I came with a lot. It was the underlayers, the problem. Because on the surface, a lot of people around you might look happy, bubbly, courageous, brave. They can get on a stage and sing in front of thousands of people. But if you get into a room with them and you get into the heart of it, you'll see a lot of insecurity, body love issues, self-image issues, self-confidence, self-esteem issues. They were there. And I was fragile. I was emotionally fragile. I was in deep need of nurturing. So when I met this person that felt safe compared to what I was used to, I latched onto that. And the perceived nurturing is what I really connected to. Now I've grown and I've learned and I know more and I need more. I need different. So at the time, this was the relationship I needed, I guess, to come to these lessons and these conclusions. It took me 10 years. I guess I'm a slow learner. Who knows? Which is funny because I'm usually a fast learner, but here, clearly not. I'm grateful for the experience and I understand now why I was in this situation. I was flammable. I was completely flammable. It didn't help that I also had a parent who was also a major gaslighter in my life. Definitely eroded at my self-confidence throughout my life. I was used to this pattern. That's all. For me, it was normal. That was my familiar space. That's why it was a blind spot. It was my safe space because I was just used to being built up and torn down by the person I love. It took me a lot of work. Mother wound healing, father wound healing, most of which I did this year. And I'm 32, y'all. So it's never too late. If you're young and watching this, even if you're older and watching this, it is never too late to work on these emotional wounds because they do not heal until you work on them. I have a video about healing emotional wounds as well. Yeah, I have a video for everything. You should subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. Dude, these little scars and cracks and crevices, it's where the smoke can infiltrate you. I did the work to shine loving universe healing light, divine light on my broken parts, my misaligned parts. And I put them back together and I give them a lot of love and care. And I appreciate the journey for what it is. And the contrast is what helps me super appreciate myself, especially because I got to see myself grow and literally go from darkness to light. I really hope that you can gain something from this experience, from this testimonial. If you feel like you're in a similar situation and you're also afraid that you might fall back into that type of relationship, or you're currently in a relationship like this, I encourage you to just take a moment and ask yourself questions, because deep inside, you might be very unaware right now. Life experience teaches, words do not. And if you've been through this kind of experience, I'm pretty sure some of what I'm saying has resonated with you. And I want you to trust yourself. And I want you to work on that relationship. I want you to. I invite you to. And you do whatever you want. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just saying, if you're looking for the keys to your freedom, it's inside. It's so cheesy. It's inside of you. Maybe not what you want to hear, but it really is. I will make videos talking about the mother wound and father wound work I've done and the internal journey of forgiveness. Forgiving yourself. This is a big journey and it's ongoing. It's not one and done. But it starts there, and then you can start picking up the pieces of you, looking at them, shining some loving light onto them, and cleaning them up, if you want to. I'm just letting you know what helped me live my best life, but it might not resonate with you, and that's okay. That's okay too. So, to my exes, to people who exhibit gaslighting behavior, I send them lots of love and absolutely hope that they can grow and heal themselves, because I don't know where the behavior is coming from. That's their internal journey. It's not my business. I can only protect myself and mind my business, which is what I also learned. This is the only person that matters to me now, 1,000%. And my inner child, putting her first, because I also used to put other people's inner childs first, learned behavior. So I wish them the best. I really, again, I'm reiterating, I'm not blaming or vilifying anyone. We all have behaviors that hurt other people, because hurt people. It is inevitable. The energy inside is the energy that will radiate. And sometimes we're just very unaware. All we can do is be responsible with ourselves, forgive those around us, like Jesus said, for they know not what they do most of the time, and protect ourselves the best way we can, man, just by showing ourselves a lot of self-love and trusting that we can get through it all. Yeah, man. Comment section, I want to see little fire extinguisher emojis. Because we are out here becoming inflammable, baby. Inflammable. No flame, no fire, no smoke can penetrate this. Here's to being inflammable. Here's to being knowledgeable. Here's to being strong, resilient, loving yourself, and moving forward fearlessly. Peace out. M Angel down.